inflation would be 19%. Uh, just to give a fact, uh, company ने last quarter provision they were doing 150 crore per month, so they were taking a provision of 1800 crore a year for wage increase. का quarterly bill है wage का 10,000 crore. So that means whatever they are provisioning for a year, बिल है उसमें 8,000 करोड़ करके ऐड करना है, तो 10-12,000 करोड़ का तो वेज इंक्रीज उनको अकोमोडेट करना है. Last time also what happened when they gave 2017 20% hike, after that they also gave some 4-5% increase on medical claim benefits, so effective increase was 25%. This time I don't know how this calculation will be done, but let's assume the 19% is all in all which is given. I keep on pointing out 4-5 things which has worked for Coal India in last 6-7 months. If Fact Finder remembers, I shared him one document also 5-6 months back. So they got benefit of everything. International coal prices, they got benefit of inventory monetization. Since there were shortages of coal, they got benefit of receivable squeeze. Receivables used to be 19-20,000 crore on an average, and right now even on elevated they are sitting on some 12-13,000 crore receivables. So they have squeezed some 6-7,000 crore in last 12 months. So everything needs to be normalized. Once it's normalized, I don't know where it will stand, but valuation is very, very high even now. I guess we started discussing when it was 250 something. उसके बाद 15 रुपए dividend निकल गया, so effective price was 235, but it's very, very elevated. They used to do something 20-22-25,000 crore EBITDA. अगर उसमें से अभी say 5-6,000 crore बढ़ जाता है wage inflation की वजह से, so EBITDA will take a hit. I was discussing this with Fact Finder again today. He was saying that they might be transferring it through FSA, but FSA prices जो है they haven't changed in last 10 years. So ज़्यादा transfer कर नहीं पाएंगे. Anyways, electricity bill they might not be able to transfer much through FSA. So my take is still there is decent pain on the stock. Let's see. This is my take. I've been saying this for last 4-5 months, I guess now. Hello.
Yeah. Ravindra, thank you very much.
And other thing is, what we are seeing is the premium on futures and everything now. That has been normalizing. Say at one point of time, the carry yield has even touched 8%, 9% on index level, and even for some stock it was above 10%. So that has normalized. I guess the reason for that might have been India, the liquidity from the banking system has dried up dramatically in October, November. So when that shift happened, that was the time we were saying very high rollover yield. The yield for the index was about 8.5%. Now it's about 6%. So that has normalized now. So that we can consider as an anomaly when it has happened earlier. Yeah, I'll go on mute again. Hello.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fact Finder, unmute करो, आवाज आती तो. नहीं आ रही है. Yeah.
Hey, Kamal, can I speak?
Yes. Please speak.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Please speak.
Yeah, we can hear you. Fact Finder, go ahead.
Can anybody?
Yeah, we all can hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Fine.
So Kamal ji, I was just, I was listening to your conversation, and one thing that I was interested about is to hear your technical views on metals. And the reason why people are kind of getting bullish on metals is because they are looking at the rally that's happening in steel prices out of China, which is all driven by the, steel typically, as we get into this particular period, a combination of the Chinese New Year, where things usually shut down, and a combination of the opening up that has led to this curry in China to buy iron ore as well as buy steel. And since the Chinese steel companies have been operating at lower production levels, you've seen this spike up in prices, and that's getting people in India excited about stocks. The best way to trade, in my view, steel names is to typically look at the Singapore iron ore, steel futures. I mean, iron ore futures. That gives you a very good sense of, when to play the trade and when to get out of it. The fact of the matter, one thing that does not change is that no matter how much liquidity China is offering, the consumer in China is not interested in buying real estate. And so, we've now been about 17 months since the fall in the real estate purchasing cycle, which means we are only 5 months into the construction slowdown cycle. Only 5 months, bear in mind. We haven't even started it. And this will only obviously get progressively worse over the next 1 to 2 years. So, any rally that you see in steel should be taken as more of a trade rather than more of a long term structural change. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that what a lot of people haven't baked into numbers is that starting this year, I think in a few months from now, Europe is going to implement something called carbon charge on steel imports. So typically, Indian companies obviously don't follow any environmental policies as far as carbon. How much of coal we use. A lot of thermal coal in our production. They use a lot of gas, and they use a lot less, carbon heavy fuels. So obviously they have a huge disadvantage. We have a huge advantage, and so in order to remove that advantage for India, for ex-European steel companies, and rather bridge the disadvantage that the European companies face, they're going to do something called carbon charge on imports, and that is not kicked in as yet. Once that kicks in, the so-called profitability of any exporter out of India into Europe will get hit very badly. So just wanted to highlight that. The other thing I wanted to highlight is back about a month and a half, probably 2 months ago, I had noted and I'd also tweeted about the fact that Zomato's September quarterly results were super bad, and I'll tell you why it is super bad. Uh, Zomato's so-called revenues, or rather total, volume of sales. When I say sales, is how much of food was purchased on their platform. That only grew 2% quarter over quarter between June quarter and September quarter. Ideally, with the opening up of the economy and massive food inflation, and if you would have noticed going to any restaurant today or ordering any food, you would have seen at least a 20 to 25% increase in your food bill, a restaurant bill. It doesn't matter if you're a big restaurant or an extremely small restaurant, the inflation is at least 10 to 20%. And so the thing is, when Zomato was saying that their revenue growth sequentially was only 2%, it means that in September quarter they already started seeing a sequential decline in volume growth, which means that while people said no, things are booming, it was not actually booming. The second thing which was surprising was, in for the month of November, Phoenix Mills came out with their results, with their quarterly business, their monthly business update. Now, bear in mind, Phoenix Mills caters to the richest of the rich of India. I would say the 0.11% of India, 0.001% of India. And they, according to their numbers, if they when they compared their revenue through the mall, spent at the mall, versus 2019 November, so 3 years before, their revenue growth was only 13% between 3 years ago and today for the month of November, which is means that, and we all know, between 3 years and today, the prices of everything have gone up at least by 35-40%. or maybe 25% for sure. So, which means that and people obviously have made a lot of money in the stock market. People in the wealthy part of India are doing really well at this moment, and they're not spending at Phoenix Mills. That means there's a serious problem. And I'm not surprised when a couple of 3-4 days ago, Kotak Broking, which is one of the best research houses in the country, they actually went ahead and cut their earnings estimates for the QSR companies, and they downgraded by about 4 to 9%. They're saying there's a very significant slowdown starting November. So this day, all of this slowdown is very visible when you looked at numbers from Phoenix Mills, you looked at numbers from Zomato more than a month and a half ago, and now people are start talking about it. So my sense is that this particular result season, except for the banks, this result season is not going to be a good result season. It's going to be progressively worse.
Sorry to interrupt you, but today the update up from HDFC Bank was so stupid. The share went down. Did you
Yeah, I'm
see
not
that?
here. I'm done.
No, but did you see that? Hello, Ravindra, you can hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Fact finder. Uh,
Fact finder. Yeah.
I think FactFinder is having some network issue.
Okay.
नहीं नहीं ये
So
ट्विटर
in
में कुछ
connecting.
ट्विटर में ग्लिच आ रहा है सर इसमें थोड़ा सा
अच्छा ठीक है
वो दोबारा ज्वाइन करते हैं तो
भाई,
दोबारा आई विल गिव हिम द माइक सर सर ए शरद भाई आई लुक्ड एट अच्छा फैक्ट फाइंडर को आने दीजिए फिर आई हैव लुक्ड एट सम ऑफ द मेटल स्टॉक्स आई हैव डिफरेंट व्यूज ऑन डिफरेंट स्टॉक्स वन सेकंड ही इज बैक
नहीं वो छोड़ो ना स्टॉक का क्या अभी स्टील के बारे में अभी अपना आईक्यू इतना लो हो गया है क्या कि स्टील का बारे में बात करेंगे
नहीं सर वो फैक्ट फाइंडर ने पूछा इसलिए मैंने बोला दिया हाँ फैक्ट फाइंडर शरद भाई वांट्स टू काउंटर योर पॉइंट सर शरद
no
भाई
no no I said HDFC Bank came out with a quarterly update. It was so stupid, so the shares went down. What do you read? So the bogey of good bank results.
No, no, no. Saradji, don't look at, just HDFC Bank. The challenge with HDFC Bank is that it's so large. It is a challenge. If you saw the results of, example, Bajaj Finance, right? They grew the AUM by about 30%. So one can argue, and Bajaj Finance is not a small institution. So, I mean, the simple thing that I see is, I go by this very simple data that's publicly available. Anybody can track, and it's a very useful data. RBI basically what it does, it publishes data from all banks on a monthly basis. Okay, this data is effectively what is the average fixed deposit rate of all the fixed deposits sitting in a single bank, and this is across the entire banking system. It also shows you what is the average lending rate of all loans of all banks in the banking system. So, if you look at that data, that gives you a sense of how are borrowing rates and lending rates and deposit rates going through the system. So, I mean, I would not really look into one bank and say, if I looked at other, banks in general, they've done decently well. But Sharadji, I'm with you on one point. Is that banking has become a consensus buy and a consensus overweight.
You saw what happened to Bank of Baroda today.
Sorry, Sharadji, I didn't see the market today.
Okay, it went down a bit. Now, another question. US faced inflation. So first thing they did was raise interest rates and bring down the stock market. Okay. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we raising rates and bringing the stock market down? Why?
See, because everybody knows. See, please, if you look at what Donald Trump did, Donald Trump used to keep saying, see, the stock market's doing well, the economy is doing well. Everybody knows the economy is in deep shit. The only thing for most uneducated, see, bear in mind, only 2% of India or 3% of India invest in the stock market. The rest 97% don't have money or are clueless. But when they look at their newspaper every day, they see the stock market. The stock market's gone up. Now, if the stock market starts falling down, then basically people say, boss, my halat is bad. Even stock market is falling down. That means economy is bad. So you have to keep the stock market up.
Okay.
Fact finder, if you keep the interest rates, real interest rates negative, it is ultimately going to fuel speculative markets. That's exactly what the US markets used to do.
Yeah, but see, the point is that the US market, bear in mind, is a more efficient market. Okay, where 70% or 80% of the stocks are owned by families and people. India is a very concentrated market. So bear in mind about that. So you can't, what applies to US doesn't apply to India. But I want to also highlight one thing is that talking about RBI, my view is that RBI will not raise rates too much, and the simple reason is that they don't want to be shown, they don't want to be being shown as okay, they raise rates and cut rates. And it's very beneficial, I want to repeat this time and again. RBI benefits when the rupee depreciates. The government of India makes money when the rupee depreciates. RBI's liability is the rupee, its assets is the dollar. So when the rupee depreciates, they make money, which they pay dividend to the government of India, and so the government of India makes money. Also, when the rupee depreciates, we become our imports become whatever, and exports benefit. However, when the rupee depreciates, the biggest component of GST, which is IGST, and IGST is more than 50% of GST, or as much as 50% of GST, more than 50% of GST. That is the fastest growing component of GST, and that goes to the center primarily, right? I mean, a fair bit of it. So IGST grows fast because imports grow fast, and imports grow fast because rupee depreciates. So there is all the incentive for rupee to keep depreciating every year. So they will not raise rates too much. They will allow the rupee to depreciate.
Okay. Jay, बोलिए.
Hi, good evening, Kamal Bhai. Good evening, Sharad ji. Good evening, Fact Finder. Sir, you guys know more than me. मैं बस एक छोटा सा point add करूँगा inter market correlation का है. There is a everybody currently talk of the town is the movement in gold. Gold में जो movement आई है आज, right? पर पर एक बहुत interesting है. If you look at gold by crude, gold का price divided by crude का price का ratio. If you plot it with S&P, थोड़ा मैथमेटिक्स करके, you get effectively कि जब गोल्ड बाय क्रूड रेशियो 30 जाता है, अभी 25 पे है, जब 30 जाता है, it is when it marks a precipitation start in the market. We are reaching to that point, but till the time it reaches 30, बाजार थोड़ा सा साइडवेज, थोड़ा सा बुलिश रहता है, but when we reach that 30 level, गोल्ड बाय क्रूड का एक precipitating fall चालू होता है बाजार में. So the movement in gold and the decline in crude is hinting कि that stage is coming very close. जब एक precipitating fall आएगा S&P में, पर तुरंत नहीं आएगा. But I just wanted to add that across. तुरंत it can be little bullish, but all things are pointing कि yes, in some short span of time, in 6 months, there's likely to be a precipitating fall in the S&P market, S&P, and possibly followed by a similar thing in India. So just wanted to add that. That's all. Thank you, Sharad sir.
Actually, gold has become very interesting. For the first time, you're actually seeing central bankers globally, especially the Russians and the Chinese and the Middle East people. Bear in mind the largest 90% of current account surplus generated in the world today, 90% of it is generated by three regions: by Russia, by China, and the Middle East. Ask yourself this simple one question: what do they want to increase their exposure to the US dollar? No, especially Russia and China. They're going to increase it to obviously gold, and China is doing it on behalf of Russia. So this is actually the first. This is very interesting, gold from that perspective, because um, you know uh, the central banks. I don't think this one quarter buying by central banks is a one off. It could be consistent.
Interesting. So, Factfinder, you think this can continue for a little longer while, maybe 5 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It'll just continue. I mean, you think that the Europeans and the US are going to keep quiet about Russia, and you think anybody's now going to trust holding US dollar reserves, especially the Middle East, especially Russia, and especially China, which generate today 90% of the world's current account surplus. I mean, what are reserves? It's primarily a current account surplus, essentially, right? Unless you borrow it, which in case of India does. India borrows its reserves, but most of these other countries don't borrow their reserves.
No, Factfinder. So, in that case, if we see seeing a good outlook for gold, right? Some of the gold financing companies across the world will look very attractive in that case.
Why will gold financing companies look good?
Because people deposit their gold, right, to take loan, and the deposit
No,
value
no,
will
but you're right. The problem with gold financing companies today in India, especially, is that you're right. Typically, in a great environment, gold finance. I agree with you completely. Gold finance, when gold prices keep going up, then their loans keep going higher because people love taking loans against gold. It's the easiest and the fastest way to do it. But the problem is that uh, everybody's caught on, right? Even small banks are caught on to it, right? So it's become extremely competitive market, which is why people are struggling. The second important thing you got to keep in mind is that who are the people who go borrow against gold? Primarily, it's the poorer people, right? The poorer people currently are screwed in India, right? And so because of that, they're not able to, you know, increase their pledge, right? Or probably borrow more, right? Even if the gold prices go up. Probably some of them are, if you look at the data, for instance, for deposits, and you remove the top 100 cities in India, savings accounts and deposit and fixed deposit is actually declining in the rest of India. In absolute terms, it's actually declining because people are drawing on their savings.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Factfinder. Over to you, Kamal bhai, Sharad bhai.
Oh, may I add something? Hello?
Please, bolo, Ravindra bhai.
Please, please.
Acha, we were discussing about the fact finder was pointing about the three large countries which might be diverting from dollar to gold. But think about this: we are keep on hearing about smaller countries which are talking about the bilateral trade. Even if we go for any kind of bilateral trade, say India enter into some kind of bilateral trade with Sri Lanka, we are not comfortable in keeping the Sri Lankan currency in our forex reserve. So what will happen once the bilateral trade is closed? The currency which you are comfortable in keeping is again back to gold only. So even if we want to see the smaller countries, if they want to diversify away from the gold in terms of bilateral trade, you need to find some denomination where both the country are comfortable in keeping their reserves. So again, switch back to gold. That is one point. The other thing which you were asking about gold finance. Hello.
Ravinder, I need to correct you over there. I think what you're saying is wrong.
Why?
See, because if you're saying that you are India, Sri Lanka is entering into a agreement where they try and use the current Indian rupee, right, for payments.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that it doesn't mean that Sri Lanka will go buy gold and then transfer it to India. it becomes extremely cumbersome to do that, right? Because if I have to, I mean, it's physical gold at the end of the day, right? So it becomes very, very tough. Which is why, if you even listen to what Russia has done, they are saying that 60% of their reserves in their new fund, wealth fund, will be gold, and the remaining 40% is Chinese yuan. So you will not, and it's not like Sri Lanka is in a position where they actually have a positive, reserves, right?
No, no, Sri Lanka I only use as an example, but any bilateral country you want to enter, where you will be exchanging in two currencies, finally you need to find some common ground where you both to agree that we will keep this currency for a year or something for a longer term. For that, I think the second option comes as a gold only. Hello?
No, I'm not. I don't think that is correct. It's only a country which has a positive accrual of fiscal deficit surplus,
Look,
and none of the countries that you speak about, both Sri Lanka and India, have a fiscal surplus.
no, about India, Sri Lanka, I don't know. But one thing, dollar will be the reserve currency of the world now, afterwards, thereafter. ये सब डॉलर ये सब बोलता है ये करेगा कोई कुछ नहीं कर पाएगा डॉलर विल रिमेन नंबर वन रशिया कुछ भी करे चाइना कुछ भी करे वो लोग अमेरिकन हाँ बोलिए
Ji, can I just say one thing? What I was referring to was the asset side. What you are, I agree with you that the dollar will remain the use of the most used currency, and the reason is that everybody focuses on asset side. I spoke on the asset side, which is reserves. The liability side is the issuance of borrowings. Borrowings globally, 80 to 90% of borrowings are US dollar denominated. When an Indian company borrows abroad, when an Indian bank borrows abroad, when a Japanese bank borrows abroad, when a European bank or European company borrows abroad, everybody borrows in dollars, which is why all your FX transactions, 90% of FX transactions are dollar denominated, and that drives your dollar strength. So it's the liability side and that side.
no
So I
and
agree with you. The dollar
no
is not going to be replaced. I agree with you, but I'm just saying from a gold purchasing perspective, incrementally the central banks will buy gold. Those who have surplus, deficit surplus on their current account, and that will help gold because gold is not very big at the end of the day.
no according to what I understand the run up in gold in last 7-8 days is because of unwinding of short positions okay and it will cross 1950 or so. By that time, all shorts will be out of the system, and some joggers will start buying. So maybe 2400, 2500 is on the cards. And another thing, as you keep on saying dollar rupee and this, 85 is on the horizon now. I think it's very soon it will happen. So equity as a class uh, gets a dent from gold, fixed income, fixed deposits from every corner. So I don't see much future in equity. I think I'm talking off tangent.
Sir, I think if I may add a point to what you just said.
Yeah, always.
So I think you made a very interesting point. So in the 30-year history of, if you take the ratio of Sprott Physical Gold and Silver Trust versus the Vanguard Balanced Index, which is nothing but a 60-40 traditional portfolio, it clearly shows that I think now it could be interesting to own the precious metals. So if you look at the history from 1993 to 2001 was the period when there was significant underperformance of the Vanguard ETF, meaning the traditional 60-40 vis-a-vis the gold. And from a period, the decade after 2001 till 2010 probably, gold, which is the precious metal ETF, did really well. Now, it is the first time in the last decade that this ratio has gone above his 36-month average. So I think it could be an interesting point to probably look at precious metal as an investment. But I think again to probably talk about equities or maybe doing even well going ahead is, I think, a couple of points. One, I think Fed might actually put brakes onto their hiking cycle. Powell, I think, categorically said that.
How do you make that judgment?
Right. So
How
I
do you-
think, right, sir. So he said, I think Fed eventually has a dual mandate of one, controlling inflation, and second, generating maximum employment. And if I'm not wrong, in the last minutes, Powell categorically said that restoring balance in labor market to get inflation to the target of 2% by slowing job growth rather than putting people out of work, and they wouldn't try to crash the economy and then clean up afterwards. So my thought process on the macro front is they'd probably do one more 50 bips and stop the rate hiking cycle, which could coincide with full China reopening, which could then spark another rally in the equity markets. That is my thought process.
Why are you after rally in stock market, yeah? 680 S&P 2008 touched a high of 4800. 13 years bull market has ended. Why don't you accept that? Get out of that blinders. And gold per se has beaten S&P also, and has beaten Nifty also, hands down. कुछ भी कर लो आप, और कितना शेयर डिलिस्ट हुआ, कचरा हो गया, उसका तो कोई हिसाब ही नहीं है. आप रिलायंस देखते हो, HDFC बैंक देखते हो और खुश होते हो, बाकी सब तो देखो हालत क्या है. Jay, sorry, what I feel is you keep this mindset out of your mind that there is a bull market left, is it? No. Today as we speak, Microsoft is down $8-9. So things are crazy. Tesla at 112 and Apple, on the day the results will be announced, it will be almost $100. So where is the bull market, यार? ये सब अपना इंडियन गवर्नमेंट एज फैक्ट फाइंडर वाज सेइंग तमाशा ही हो रहा है. 3 बजे और छाप छाप के लेके चले जाओ. Anyway, yes, पार. बोलिए पार साहब, क्या नाम है? PAR दिखता है मेरे को.
Right, sir. I certainly have a little contrasting view. I think the rally might last. I could be very wrong. Again, but I think the credit cycle on the banking end has just started, and I think if you again, all institutional analysts could be wrong, but everybody is projecting a 7-8% growth rate for India for the next decade. If that holds true, then I think 9-10% CAGR still on the index isn't a far-fetched thought.
Okay. They are saying 7-8% growth yearly.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How much is the our economy now? Hello?
Yeah.
How much is the economy now?
You mean the GDP?
Yeah.
It's 3.54 trillion.
Rupees?
No, USD.
3.4, 3.37.
No, in rupees, please.
It's about 2.5 lakh, 25 lakh crores, I guess.
Oh, you are talking. Let him talk. No, he is asking the question. Why are you interrupting? By
Right.
our nominal GDP is 2.4 to 240 trillion rupees. Our real GDP is only 140 trillion rupees. Our market cap is 385 trillion rupees. World over, market cap to GDP, it's 0.60 or 0.70. Here we are much more higher. So where you will get the growth? और बोलने में क्या जाता है बॉस? मैं भी बोलता हूँ. वो 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 बोलता है और वो कट करता है, बोलता है कट करता है. So you should be reasonable in understanding. Where is the growth? Maruti is stagnant since how many years, Finder?
No, it's the industry sales has been generally stagnant for the last 5 years.
So do you think in next 10 years it will improve?
No, I'm hopeful. I mean, see, a kid always grows, no?
Right. No, sir. I think it's a great analogy. If we are to become, say, a 2,000 a $5,000 GDP per capita from a $2,000 GDP come per capita, गाड़ियाँ तो लगेगी. I think from that thought process, from a decadal thought process, I don't think we are at where we can be or should be as a country.
So, okay, Parth, let me just, the 7% GDP growth, no?
Yeah.
It's all nice. There's a big problem there. When the problem is that usually, at least this is data that's available for about 35 countries that have, seen growth and and that have seen a big improvement in their countries that have become developed or gone to $20,000+ of per capita. So when they looked at this data and they looked at which countries can have sustainable long-term growth, there is an extremely important threshold called government debt. Okay. Now, out of this equation, please remove US because US is a reserve currency. So whatever applies to US doesn't apply to the rest of the world. For the longest time, also whatever applied to UK doesn't apply to the rest of the world because they at one point of time was a reserve currency, right? And similarly, Japan has, obviously we can't compare Japan because Japan has been current account surplus, but they've, the stock market's not gone anywhere for the last long time, including if you include their currency depreciation, right? So
Correct.
if you look at their GDP, also it's barely, I mean, it's hardly grown, right? The point I'm trying to make is that if you remove these three countries and put all the other countries, okay, no country with a 89 to 90% of debt, government debt to GDP, which is where we have reached. And pre-COVID, we were at 50%, 55, 60%, 70%. Okay, at 90%, and there's a paper written by the World Bank on this, that at 90%, it's impossible for a country to grow very high sustainably. And that what they have seen from 32 country data, okay, data from 32 countries is that the best average growth is only 5% to 4%. Okay, you might have years of 7%, 8%, but on a sustainable basis, because our debt to GDP is 9%. Just think about it. When our interest rates have gone up and the government's borrowing costs have gone up, what proportion today? 43% of the interest of the income of the government is going towards interest cost. That figure used to be 32% just 2.5 years ago. Okay, 3 years ago. Okay, so we have a big problem. And the government is saying that the fiscal deficit is going to come down, which means that their spending is going to come down. And the biggest spender in the last 3 years has been the government of India. If they are saying that the deficit is going to come down, which means that their spending will come down, then how is our GDP growth going to be 7% on a sustainable basis?
And no, and also another thing, Path. Our budget of last year estimate was 40 lakh crores. 40 lakh crores, out of which 24 lakh was revenue income, this income tax, GST, excise, and whatnot. And 16 crores were 16,000 crores, oh, sorry, or whatever, were only interest payments. This year, I I asked somebody, so he said the budget will be of 49 crores and interest will be around 22 crores. So, if you are talking of growth and all that, I don't know. But the figures and numbers, see, I'm not being negative. I also have shares, I have a huge portfolio, okay? But fact is a fact. Just by wishing, things will not change. So move ahead with keeping in mind, yes, things are topsy-turvy, and hope for the best. हो
Right, sir.
जाएगा हो जाएगा निफ्टी 1 लाख हो जाएगा नो प्रॉब्लम.
I think one interesting data point that I read, Fact Finder and Sharad sir, is if you look at the growth rates provided by the World Bank itself for all the countries. So I think 5-6 countries put aside, countries like Pakistan or Syria who are facing serious turmoil. उसके अलावा सारे countries का growth rate दिया है. There is no country who is expected to have a higher growth rate than India and has a size of economy which is higher than India. I think sizes or countries with decent sizes of economy is probably Vietnam, which has a higher expected growth rate for the next 3 years, which is probably 1/4 the size of India, and Bangladesh, which is even smaller. And I think China or any other comparable country of say $3.5 trillion of GDP, no country has an expected growth rate of 6 to 7%. Again, data provided by World Bank. My point being, inflows of foreign funds will keep on coming if we achieve this 7% growth target. And I think, again, I could be extremely wrong, but I think my thought process is our index or the top line or the top 50 companies will continue to grow at a decent pace of 9-10% as we go ahead. Thank you.
Let me burst a bubble. That logic existed last year. It existed this year. It existed for the last 7 years. See how many of those 7 years India saw positive inflow from foreigners. Only 1 or 2 years. That's it. So, second question is, Parth, we are in a very different interest rate environment. Whatever we grew up with in the last 30 years, try and forget about it. Because we saw only one thing, which is interest rates worldwide going down. We are in a different environment where interest rates worldwide and sustainable inflation worldwide is going to go up. Okay. The biggest asset allocators in the world are pension funds. What is their target? Their target is to get 6% return, currency adjusted, right? If you offer them today, an emerging market bond fund is giving you without any is giving you 8%. A US investment grade corporate is giving you 6%. Why will I take the risk of equity, currency, all of that shit and invest? Doesn't make sense, no? Last year your argument was right, and still last year there were outflows. This year there is no case to invest out. Secondly, who's investing big time? Who's announced the biggest investments? TSMC has announced their biggest investment in the US. Samsung has announced an investment in the US. So why do you think they have to go outside the US when they're getting opportunity to invest in the US? So when you keep saying that India is the greatest growth story, I don't need to invest in India if I'm getting an investment opportunity in the best market in the world, which is US.
Fair point. So fact finder, I think why don't you, since I think you have a great understanding of the macros. From what I understand, US itself is not in a great shape. I think Ravindra Bhai spoke really well about how global banks would not have USD on their balance sheets. I also think US debt to GDP, even though them being the global currency, I think it's at an unprecedented level, right? Higher than anybody else. And I think Ray Dalio and everybody have spoken extensively that an economy cannot sustain a debt to GDP of 180, 190%, which could be a reality for the US.
What is Japanese debt to GDP? It's higher than the US.
Right, but it's a different
It's about
economy.
350%. It's about 350, 330 or 350. Japanese.
I agree, but Japan is a very different economy, right?
One thing is actually, I guess we are doing this discussion very long. So the only point of contention was started where you mentioned 7-8%. The realistic assumption is 5 to 6%. 7-8% was there when the global growth was supportive. Now the global growth is not supportive. Our expectations should be about 5%, 6% kind of real growth. You add whatever 5-6% kind of inflation, then you arrive at 10-11% kind of nominal growth. I guess
भाई साहब
हाँ सर
आप जो बोलते हो 6-7% ग्रोथ आएगा, ओके चलो मान लिया, तो 240 ट्रिलियन के ऊपर 6% कितना हुआ भाई?
सर 5% 240 में 12 लाख करोड़.
हाँ, तो व्हाट आर वी टॉकिंग अबाउट? 12 लाख करोड़ इंक्रीमेंट, वो तो इन्फ्लेशन से ही हो जाएगा, वो तो डॉलर रुपी से भी हो जाएगा. ईवीए देखा, आप रियल जीडीपी पे जाओ ना, रियल जीडीपी 140 है, 6% पकड़ते हो आप, नॉमिनल पकड़ते हो, तो रियल कितना हुआ? अगर रियल भी है,
मैं 5-6% रियल का ही बोल रहा था, 5-6% रियल और 5% इन्फ्लेशन.
हाँ, तो 5-6% रियल का पकड़े तो 140 ट्रिलियन है, तो कितना हुआ रविंद्र? 7 लाख करोड़.
6-7 लाख करोड़ रियल और 6-7 लाख करोड़ अपना इन्फ्लेशन, उतना ही.
तो उसमें स्टॉक मार्केट ही इतना ऊपर है, तो क्या होगा ग्रोथ? पार्थ, नॉट अग्रीएबल विथ यू.
Sure, sir. Sure.
अरे फाइन दो, गिव मी अ फाइन. चाय बाय पिलाओ कभी.
Oh, sir, 100%. I'm still, I think, we can have this healthy discussion and still be in opposing camps. I still think India is not expensive at 21, 22 times. Even if the real growth rate is 5 to 6%, I still think India is cheap,
Yeah, India is not cheap.
Parth, the problem with your 21, 22 is that it includes ONGC at 3 times, HPCL at 6 times, NTPC at 10 times, and IOC at 3 or 4 times. Power grid at 10 times. So please remove all of those, no? And then see what the real stock by stock. At the end of the day, you don't buy index, you buy stocks, no?
Fair, but I think Reliance is also 26, 27 times. It's growing.
Yeah, what is Reliance's ROIC?
Sorry?
What's Reliance's ROIC? Do you want to compare Reliance to Tencent? Do you want to compare Reliance to Alibaba? Because at the end of the day, Reliance is only following that strategy of what Tencent and Alibaba is doing. What is Reliance's return on capital?
Yeah, well, and higher single digits. I agree with you that it's...
Yeah, so it's expensive, right?
Again, I get where you're coming from, and I don't think what you're saying is wrong. But in the parallels of our domestic economy, I don't think it's expensive. I still hold my view. And I understand that when a global fund looks at a Tencent and a Reliance put together and probably has the same growth rate, would probably be enticed to put money into Tencent. But I'm saying, I don't know how to put it, but I still think we are not at the expensive point. If you look at the Nifty PE ratio band and the chart.
Parth, we conclude this by saying we agree to agree, we agree to disagree.
Sure, sir.
No
Sure.
problem.
Sure, sir. Sure.
लेकिन एक word of advice, don't be so wordly bullish. खाली एक ही चीज होगा, पैसा लग जाएगा.
Right, sir.
And this valuation you have seen only in 2 years. उसके आगे कभी नहीं था पहले. Okay, keep that in mind. ये वैल्यूएशन जिंदगी में अरे मैं तो रोज सर खुजाता हूँ और मेरे आदमी को बोलता हूँ नवरत्न तेल दाल भर के. इट्स क्रेजी यार. व्हाई विल यू बाय अ शेयर with 30p, 40p, 60p, 80p? What for? Growth and path. You are in Mumbai or what?
Yes, sir. Mumbai based.
So connect with me. We'll have a drink.
For sure, sir. For sure. Would love to.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Sharad sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks, bye.
पाथ भाई
Yes, sir.
आ जाना.
Sure, sir. Sure. Sure.
Brajeshi, one last question, sir.
Hello. Good evening, Kamal sir. Sharad sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Sharad sir, in continuation to last week मैंने आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि मार्केट आपको खराब लग रहा है. रियली मार्केट पुराने लोगों को सबको ही ओवर प्राइस लग रहा है. और मैंने पूछा था आप आपका अपना पोर्टफोलियो इन्वेस्टमेंट पोर्टफोलियो तो नहीं बेचेंगे? तो बोले वो मैं नहीं छूता हूँ, आपने बोला था. और आप नहीं बेचते हैं. तो अभी दो चीजों में एक डिफरेंस दिखता है 2005-8 के बीच में और आज के बीच में. टैक्सेशन का बहुत बड़ा चेंज हो चुका है. उस टाइम पे हमारी सारी लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन फ्री था, जस्ट लाइक फार्मर्स. हमारा डिविडेंड सारा टैक्स फ्री होता था. वो सारा सीधा कैपिटल अकाउंट में जाता था. अभी ये जो दोनों चीजें चेंज हो गई है और एचएनआईज को जो टैक्स स्लैब 42% का आ रहा है डिविडेंड पे, कहीं ये कारण आपको इसको मार्केट से कैसे कोरिलेट करते हैं आप? और इसमें आपका क्या व्यू है? और आप इतना बड़ा पोर्टफोलियो मैनेज करते हैं तो आप उसके लिए क्या करते हैं? जब डिविडेंड आता है तो क्या आप स्टॉक बेच के वापस एक्स डिविडेंड लेते हैं, क्या करते हैं?
नहीं, मैं वो सब नहीं करता हूँ भाई. स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड जितना भी टैक्स रेबिट आता है भर देता.
ओके.
क्योंकि ये टैक्स बचाने के चक्कर में 1-2 बार एडजस्टमेंट किया था लाइफ में.
राइट.
तो इतना तकलीफ पड़ा, उसके बाद नक्की किया नो एडजस्टमेंट्स.
क्योंकि उस टाइम तो क्या है कि लॉन्ग टर्म गेन और आप बड़ा डिविडेंड शो करो. इवन उस टाइम तो एसटीटी भी जो थी वो इट वाज ट्रीटेड एज लाइक टीडीएस. आपको पूरा क्रेडिट मिल जाता था टैक्स में. तो अभी तो सारा टैक्स चला ही जाता है. तो वही मैंने कहा एक बार शरद भाई से पूछते हैं, उनका पोर्टफोलियो बहुत बड़े साइज का है. तो व्हाट इज योर, और ये भी एक रीजन हो सकता है क्या कि एचएनआई इसलिए माल नहीं बेचते हैं और फ्यूचर और ऑप्शंस में काफी शिफ्ट हो गए? क्योंकि आप वापस ऊपर में बेच के नीचे लोगे तो आपका सारा डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगा टैक्सेशन स्लैब.
यार वेरी ऑनेस्टली आई नेवर थिंक अबाउट इनकम टैक्स.
ओके.
और प्रॉफिट होगा तो भरने में क्या हर्ज है अपने को?
नहीं, बट टैक्स स्लैब इज वेरी हाई ना फॉर एचएनआई. इट इज 42% इन डिविडेंड्स.
अभी गवर्नमेंट ने जो रखा है वो रखा है, क्या करेंगे?
राइट. थैंक यू सो मच. कमल भाई, एक आपसे क्वेश्चन था. जैसे आप लोग अभी जो मेटल का बोल रहे थे और आपका जो साइरस सर से आपका लंबा डिस्कशन हुआ, उसमें सिंस मैं खुद स्टील सप्लाई के बिजनेस में हूँ और थोड़ा सा मेरा व्यू डिफरेंट है. मेरा ये मानना है कि अभी जो फैक्ट फाइंडर ने भी बताया फैक्ट, अभी स्टील में ऑल ऑफ सडन बहुत अच्छी डिमांड आई है. अनएक्सपेक्टेडली हम लोग जो सेकेंडरी स्टील सप्लाई करते हैं उसमें करीब 10% की तेजी आ गई है. और 31 दिसंबर को भी सारे डिपोज जो प्राइमरी स्टील प्रोड्यूसर्स के हैं काफी एम्प्टी हो गए थे. तो मेरे हिसाब से ऐसा लगता है कि दिसंबर क्वार्टर का रिजल्ट बहुत अच्छा आएगा स्टील कंपनीज का पर्टिकुलरली. और उसके आगे भी अभी जो रेट हाइक्स आएंगी, तो अभी जैसे एनएमडीसी ने छोटी सी प्राइस हाइक करी है, लेकिन ट्रेंड रिवर्सल हुआ है. और जो एक्सपोर्ट टैक्स लगा था वो इन एक टाइप का WWF था स्टील कंपनीज एंड गवर्नमेंट के बीच में, क्योंकि वो मीनिंगफुल नहीं था, क्योंकि एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट में कोई रेट्स नहीं थे। तो जैसे ही एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट में थोड़ी डिमांड की शुरुआत लगी तो वो टैक्स हटा दिया है। उस हिसाब से मेरे को मेटल सेक्टर बहुत अच्छा लगता है, और सिंस आई एम बुलिश ऑन कैपिटल गुड्स और इन्फ्लेशन को बीट करने के लिए मेटल और ओल्ड इकोनॉमी मेरे को अच्छा लगता है। और जो अभी जो 2 दिन में आप लोगों को करेक्शन लग रहा है, वो करेक्शन इसलिए भी हो सकता है, 2 दिन पहले आप देखिए तो ट्विटर पे टाटा स्टील वाज ट्रेंडिंग इन द बिजनेस सेक्टर। तो जब कोई भी चीज पे एकदम से पब्लिक का अट्रैक्शन आता है तो 2-3 दिन का एक करेक्शन आता है। और अगर रिप्लेसमेंट कॉस्ट से देखो तो जो 2008 में स्टील का प्लांट की वैल्यू होनी थी, उस हिसाब से अगर आज आप वैल्यू सोचो तो नए स्टील प्लांट की परमिशन लेना, एनवायरमेंट क्लियरेंस लेना और नए प्लांट लगाना बहुत टफ है। अभी ये मेरी जो बात है, मैं बुलिश यहाँ हूँ कि NMDC का जो नागरनगर स्टील प्लांट जब बिकेगा, उसके बाद में ये पूरा सेक्टर रीरेट होगा, क्योंकि उस स्टील प्लांट को लेने के लिए काफी लोग लाइन में हैं, और जबकि वो प्लांट बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, PSU प्लांट है। तो मेरा ये सोचना है, आई मे बी रॉन्ग एट दैट प्लेस, बट खाली इतना ही बोलना था आपको, दैट्स ऑल।
ठीक है सर, ठीक है।
क्या बोलते हैं मतलब?
Kamal, can I say something? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, yes, please.
Sharad asked me about Bank of Baroda. So Bank of Baroda is very interesting. If it breaks 170, it'll crash. Okay, and the reason is that 170 is a very important price threshold for the MSCI inclusion. If you guys have been tracking what I've been talking on Spaces over the last 1 year, MSCI is a very important event. And obviously, the stock gets pushed up, just like a lot of other stocks like, Tata Elxsi, Adani Group, all these guys get pushed up to be included in the MSCI. Bank of Baroda was removed from the MSCI many, many years ago, and obviously it's being trying to push up into the MSCI. And so 170 is the threshold market cap level. If that breaks, if it goes below that, the stock will just crash, because all the people who have positioned themselves for the MSCI inclusion will dump the stock. But if it doesn't, if finds support and continues for the next, say, month, then it'll become very interesting. Just thought I will share that.
Yes, that's correct. In case it becomes interesting, it can move up to 210. 170 is the previous level from where it has actually rebounded. So if it goes below that, definitely there will be selling. A similar thing can happen in steel stocks also. अभी किसने पूछा था steel के बारे में? I think he has gone. Even steel, I think I've looked at the charts. According to my view, Tata Steel sale, they have got still some steam left, to top out, maybe around 15% more. Vedanta, I think, is topped out. Jindal Steel's giving signs of topping, and Hindalco, I think, another 10%. So I think whatever he was saying, as far as the quarterly results are concerned, it has already been priced in. The stocks had corrected substantially and they have pulled back. Whether they will make newer highs, I have doubts. I don't think Tata Steel would be able to cross 130, even in the best of the scenarios. That's the maximum I can look at.
And JSW Steel. Kamal bhai, JSW Steel.
1 second, sir. 1 second, sir. JSW Steel. Same again, sir. JSW Steel, again, signs of fatigue is there. So any rise above these levels, the highs, it has already tested these highs. So I think even this stock will come down. I would expect around 690 levels on this. Absolutely similar type of position. Jindal Steel and JSW Steel.
इतना थोड़ी घट जाएगा JSW Steel. 190 बोल रहा ना तू।
नहीं, ये जो 600 रुपए 700 वाला बोल रहे हैं ना सर
हाँ,
आप?
तो 190 हो जाएगा। क्या बात करता है यार।
नहीं सर, ऐसा नहीं बोला। नहीं सर, ये रिगार्डिंग दिस टाटा स्टील ना सर, मैं टाटा स्टील मुझे लग रहा है कि 108 रुपए पे भी क्रिटिकल ही है सर। तो अब वो सकर्स रैली के अंदर वो स्टॉक थोड़ा बढ़ जाए, तो इसलिए थोड़ा आई एम गिविंग इट, आई मीन इट शुड नॉट क्लोज बिलो 104 रुपीस। दैट्स द ट्रिगर पॉइंट।
Fact finder, I have named this national stock exchange as stupid stock exchange by the stupid people of India. They don't know what they are buying and why they are buying. Just buy. Chalo, Kamal bhai, will call it a day.
Yes sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much sir.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone sir. Thank you Sharad bhai. Thank you Abhishek. Thank you Fact Finder.